Hey, good evening, all. Greg, Tim, Carolyn, George.
Hi, James.
How y'all doing?
I'm good.
Congratulations and condolences.
On what?
And leading this august group forward. Thank you for taking it on.
Okay. Thank you. I was like, what did I not hear today?
No, we haven't met, James. Seriously, thank you. I know some of your colleagues and appreciate all the work y'all are doing and gonna do. I've been working with Hays County for about 20 years on this stuff as a volunteer along with Miss Wasnick.
Okay. So I'm assuming you might know Mike Moya or Cindy Engelhard.
I've met Mike. I don't think I know Cindy.
Okay. Cindy does water resources as well. They're the ones that have spent the majority of the time in Hays County.
Okay.
With us, but yeah.
George, I only heard my name. How were you taking it in vain?
That you and I've been silly enough to work on these Hays County bond campaigns for 20 years.
Oh, that's true. No objection. Successfully, I might add, though I have to think it's because Hays Countyans actually want parks, so it's not that hard to talk them into it.
Hi, good evening, Virginia. Hey, Catherine, Jill.
I just came from the flood meeting, you know, that Kimberly Meitzen and others are on that board. And I told them that what we needed was money to buy land, if we wanted to prevent flooding. Oh, Carolyn.
James, Catherine started working in this area when she was 12 years old.
And now I'm 45.
I was going to say 39, but I thought.
Oh, that's so nice, George.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, James, how are you? George?
Been great. How about yourself?
Great. So I know I got a text just now from Blanca. She'll be a little bit late. I think Lori is on a plane, is going to try to jump on as soon as she can. Looks like we have Carolyn,
Catherine, and you. So we got three right now.
Great.
One more and we're at a quorum, but we still got 2 minutes by my clock.
Yep.
James, did we get presentations shared in one of your folders at some point for this meeting?
I thought so. Let me dump them in. Let me dump them in real quick.
I emailed Alexandra to ask to speak in public comment. Is she going to be here tonight?
I think so, but the public comment will be open, so you're more than welcome.
And Diane, she sent me an email about that. So
okay, well, I'm going to stop my video and mute myself now, but I just wanted to let y'all know that. Thanks.
thank you. Catherine, by that pine tree out there. I don't think you're,
I'm not in
the-
my backyard.
yeah,
I'm in Pinos Altos outside of Silver City.
okay,
Quite lovely.
yeah. We're in Buena Vista, Colorado right now.
Oh, I love that place. You rafting?
We did some whitewater kayaking lessons today. We're going to go out again tomorrow morning, and then unfortunately we got to head out.
And I'll just let y'all know, I have a 3-year-old in the room with me, so hopefully this goes well, but I'm gonna probably turn my camera off as well until I'm asked to present. So bear with me, fair warning.
Fair enough.
Scott, I think we're still waiting on one.
Yep.
Are we expecting Lisa?
Lisa said that she will be joining, but she's going to be in a car, so maybe it's taking her a bit to get in. Let me text Scott. He's the only person I don't know.
Oh, there's Lisa.
Lisa, can you hear us? Scott, if we can assume this Lisa is our Lisa, then we have a quorum. I don't know if we need proof of life or what to say we have a quorum.
Yeah, I think that's good enough. And Lisa did say that she was going to be joining us while she was driving, so she probably can't chime in. But thank you all for joining us for the POSAC Parks and Open Space Commission meeting number 8. I think I've dove right into every meeting so far and realized that we really haven't done any introductions of our members. I think we all knew each other from the last incarnation of the Parks and Open Space Commission, but I just wanted to introduce the members on the call. We have Carolyn Gonzalez, Catherine Nichols and Lisa Pruitt. Also on the commission, we have Lori Olson, who may be joining the meeting later on when she gets off a plane, and Scott Tomhave hopefully will be able to join us this evening. All of these meetings are being recorded so that the folks on the commission who are not able to attend, they're able to watch all of the presentations after the fact. And then of course, Blanca Loya, who is our our vice chair, is also on the commission, said that she'll be joining us in a few minutes. And I really want to thank all of the members. This has been a long process. The first part of the process was reviewing all of the initial submissions, which we had quite a few of, and then coming up with a recommendation to the Commissioner's Court on a bond, and then successfully getting that bond passed. And kudos to our taxpayers who are supporting this initiative. It's wonderful that we're able to take this on, and I truly appreciate their support of the county and our Commissioner's Court, and of course this group, and trying to create parks and open spaces that are going to last our lifetime. So thank you for that. And with that, I guess we can start right into our public comment period. I believe that we had one public comment, Diane Wasenick.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak to y'all since I've attended some of the early meetings, but not this configuration of your committee. I am the retired executive director of the San Marcos River Foundation. I've been retired for 2 years now. And I must say that I didn't think I was going to live long enough to see another Hays County Parks bond. That was many, many years that passed without us having a parks bond after the last one. I think it was 12 years. And we are so thrilled. I am so thrilled as an individual and as being involved with the River Foundation in the past. I'm so thrilled about this bond money because we were struggling to put together this trail system through San Marcos with rapid growth, and cities cannot move real quickly. And so the River Foundation really had to jump in and acquire some properties and help other people acquire properties in order to just hold them and wait and see if there could be grants obtained or a bond issue, or perhaps conservation buyers who would want a property with a conservation easement and a trail easement on it. That work has proved to be very worthwhile. We are down to the last link involved in that effort. And I am so thrilled and happy that there is a Hays County Parks bond that we can apply to, and that Virginia is now the executive director and doing such a great job in finishing up all the projects I did not finish. I felt so bad about, but she has just done a stellar job and multiplied the amount of acreage that we were trying to preserve and conserve. So thank you all for your efforts and tonight, and I know you'll be interested to see the proposal from Virginia and SMRF. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Diane. And we wouldn't be here if it weren't for the past efforts of yours and so many others. And truly kudos to all of that. And thank you for what you've done and your continued support on all of these efforts. And thank you to all of the different applicants for the funding. I did want to mention, I didn't previously, that I think it was 120 million in applications in the prior, previous to the bonds being voted for by the taxpayers. And we now have an additional 90+ million in applications. So we've got our work cut out for us. And obviously this shows the great need that we have and the wonderful different projects that all of the applicants have been able to put together. So kudos to you all. I guess the question would be, if we have anyone else who's on the call for public comment, please raise your hand and you can have 2 minutes. All right, well, hearing none, then we'll go on to our presentations. And James, I'll let you run the show introducing our different presenters.
Good evening, commissioners. We've got tonight 3 different sponsors. Looks like 7 total projects. First up, we've got Dan Eck with Hill Country Conservancy. We've got Virginia Condi with the San Marcos River Foundation, and then Greg Ulmer with the City of Buda. And then first on the agenda, we've got Dan Eck with Hill Country Conservancy regarding the Violet Crown Trail. So Dan, at this point, I'll turn it over to you or whomever you have designated to run the presentation. If you're having trouble sharing screen, let me know. And I've got the PDF of your presentation I can pull up as well.
All right, thank you. All right, is that showing up?
It is.
All right, thank you, James. Thank you, commission members and members of the public. It is a privilege to be part of this process. We're very grateful for the opportunity to be here. And as Diane said, kudos for all the work Hays County is doing. My name is Dan Eck. I'm the newish CEO of Hill Country Conservancy. I've been with the organization since December. I've got on the call here tonight with me from Hill Country Conservancy, George Kofer, who does landowner and government relations for Hill Country Conservancy now, and of course is the founder and retired CEO, and Butch Smith, who is the manager of the Violet Crown Trail project. So I want to go through, give you some updates, let you know what's going on, and then I'll save some time for questions. This first slide just kind of shows where we're going here. I'm going to get into a little bit more detail here, but I want to start with what we've done so far. So we've been working on the Violet Crown Trail, really for over 10 years. It really became formalized when we entered into a contract with the City of Austin, the City of Sunset Valley to build the trail back in those contracts were 2009, 2010. And I want to show you where we are and what we've done up to date briefly. So you can see we've started up in Zilker Park, and right now the trail extends down to that red X. Just north of the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. And right now we've got 2 projects that are preparing for construction. If you see Sunset Valley, there's that second trailhead there, that's Home Depot Boulevard in the middle of Sunset Valley, and that segment down to William Cannon will be under construction this fall. And then down to that red X, south of that red X, down past the Veloway to Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center we're reviewing the public bid process right now, and hopefully that'll also be under construction this fall as well. Both of those projects will probably take about a year from start to finish. And by that point, we'll be done with what we call phase 1 of the trail for the most part. We're going to work on a few other trailheads, but we'll have the continuous trail done to Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. So after that, this is where we come down to Hays County. So as you recall, the overall project, we're going to do 30 miles of trail from Zilker Park down into Hays County, almost to Onion Creek. And about 14 miles of that trail will be from State Highway 45 into Hays County. And most of that, as you know, will be on water quality protection lands owned by the City of Austin. We've got some trailheads we're going to talk about a little bit more in detail up on Blissspillar Road in the very north part, and then a couple we're looking at down along 967. We'll talk about those a little bit in detail in a few minutes. The type of trail that we're proposing to build will be a natural trail. This is an example of the type of trail that it would be: natural path, single track, pedestrian and biking only. So it will not be like some of the parts in Austin that are 10-foot wide crushed granite. This will be very natural because we are on preserved lands. Here's another example of what a trail might look like that we build in that area. So let's talk about some trail features and amenities. Since this is in water quality protection lands, which are for the most part fenced, we're going to have gates at each trailhead. Those gates will be opened and closed at dawn and dusk. And our plan is to have solar powered gates that do that automatically, to try to limit the amount of human time we need to spend doing that. And then we're going to work on the trailhead design and amenities. We have not specified exactly what we're doing at the trailheads. We want to get some public input and talk to users about what they want to see there. As I mentioned, Bliss Spiller Road will be a trailhead, and then along 967. But we'll talk to the community about, you know, whether or not the trailheads need benches, parking, if we're going to have toilets there, shade. It really depends on the space we'll have available and what the community is asking for. Around 967, there are some safety issues. It's a fairly busy road, so we're going to have to work through a safe crossing of 967 as well. And I know TxDOT has talked about widening 967 in a few years, so we're going to keep our eye on that to see if there's options for a safer crossing on 967. But the details of those trailheads will be determined after some public input and design work. I'm going to cover the benefits briefly. For the community, getting onto conserved land, we think that's a great thing. Thoughtful, careful access. People understand what you're doing in conservation work if they can see the results of that. And that's what this will be on these protected lands. There'll be formal and informal educational opportunities. We'll have some signage. We'll have online tours. We want to have formal educational opportunities with school groups and other groups for educating people about conservation and what's on that land. And then, of course, health benefits. Our friends at the Great Springs Project did a report, just came out a few weeks ago, $900,000 in health benefits for the connected trails in Hays County. Part of that will be the result of this project. So we can't claim all $900,000 in health benefits with healthcare cost savings and healthier people, but certainly we'd like to be a part of that. Environmental, once again, people will learn more about preserved land and the importance of that. We also think having this trail will take some of the population pressure off of other recreation areas in Hays County. So we'll try to spread the people out and not put so much wear and tear on existing recreation and conserved areas. Economic benefits, again, our friends at Great Springs Project, over $11 million annually for all the trails in Hays County. That's food, retail, visitors, entertainment, sometimes lodging. And part of that will be a result of this project. We feel this trail will be a real destination trail that people are going to want to go to and travel to. And then they will use all these other community amenities. They'll need to eat somewhere. They'll need to buy gas. They may want to stay. They may want to shop. We also think there will be an awful lot of local usage of people that live in Hays County, of course, going out for recreation and education on the trail. And we also believe it's going to be a desirable amenity for residential developments. As Hays County continues to inevitably expand, this will be yet another great reason for people to live in Hays County and enjoy all it has to offer. Partnerships, we like partnerships. We're working with Great Springs Project. We want to see this connect to the Emerald Crown Trail. So that's something we're going to have to figure out, those connecting spurs to the other trails. We have trail related clubs and organizations we work with, like the Ridge Riders. We've worked with American Youth Works in the past to help us build the trail projects and maintain trail projects. So there are lots of opportunities for partnerships to multiply the effect of this trail. We build things to last. This project will last a long time, certainly more than 20 years. The path is natural. We only do stone and steel elements. We build this stuff for a minimum of maintenance because that's not where we want to spend our time and money. So we want to do it right up front. And speaking of maintenance, as part of the condition of access to the wildlands, we're working with Austin Water, who owns those properties, the water quality protection lands. They've got very specific requirements like we have up in Travis County for trail maintenance to certain standards. And we're working with Austin Water on what level of endowment that we would establish in order to make sure that there's perpetual maintenance for the trail. I'm a big believer in maintenance. I'm a big believer in perpetual maintenance. Hill Country Conservancy is starting to plan our next capital campaign that might be a couple years out. We finished in 2017, our last capital campaign. But when we do that, we are going to have a programming and stewardship endowment fund to perpetually fund maintenance funds and also programming activities on the Violet Crown Trail. But we are believers in maintenance, and we want to make sure that if we build this, we're going to be able to take care of it in perpetuity. Timing, once we get commitments, there'll be some design work and planning that needs to happen before we start turning shovels of dirt over. We need to do environmental assessments. We have to figure out the exact layout of the trail, exactly where it's going to go in connection and partnership with Austin Water. And that initial design work could take about a year before we really start trail building in earnest. So I guess that's my way of saying that if there is a commitment from Hays County, we can start working on this right away with probably some minimum initial funding before we need higher levels of funding to do the actual construction. And then timing on the project, it is a big project if we're building 14 or 50 miles of trail with all that necessary planning and design work. Over 5 years from start to finish is a pretty good estimate. I don't know if it's going to be 5, 7, 8, 9 years. We're not sure. We'll know more, of course, once we start. But this is a project. It's not, we're not acquiring the property. We're actually building a very long and thoughtfully designed trail. So this will be an ongoing process for us. So we're talking right now with Austin Water. I've got a phone call next week with them to restart the process, talking about access and requirements for working on the land. But other than that, we are excited. That's the overall trail, 30 miles, one-of-a-kind trail here in the southern part of the United States and in central Texas. So we're ready to go. If there's any questions, we're happy to take them.
Thank you, Dan.
Go ahead. Are there
Catherine,
any
go ahead.
substantial changes since the last submission, or we're going with the same PIF, right?
Yeah, no substantial changes. I mean, this is the same type of layout we've been talking about for a few years here. Of course, the actual path of the trail may change, but we have no reason. No, I would say no substantial changes.
And the reason Catherine is asking that is our role is to look at the project information forms and come up with scoring criteria, scoring for the different applications. And it seems that there's no substantial change to this application, and therefore we will not rescore it.
Understood.
Daniel, when do y'all plan to have the public input meetings for the trailheads and other amenities?
I think that would be in the first year of that, after the commitment, because we would start design in earnest then. So we'd want to do that right away so we can begin the specific designing process. So I don't have any clear date other than if we get a commitment from Hays County, then we'll start putting calendars together and go. But it would have to be within that first year so we can plan those.
Thank you.
I'd probably say within the first, 6 to 8 months, I think, because we don't want to wait we don't want to wait that long.
Any other questions for Dan? Well, Dan, thank you. I am so excited to get this built in Hays County. And I know for the past month, I've been lucky enough to be traveling around the western part of the US up into Idaho and through Utah, New Mexico. And there are just so many great trails that are accessible right outside of our cities and towns there. And we don't have that same thing in Texas. And I think having this trail built in Hays County is going to set Hays County apart from, I think, every other city and every other county within Texas. It's something we don't have, and it's really exciting to have this project done. And thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, we're excited. This trail will be it'll be very different than the segments that are in Travis County, which are very, they're busy, they go through urban areas. This is going to be beautiful. It's going to be peaceful and most of the year green. So we appreciate your time.
Thanks, Dan. James, who do we have up next?
So next we've got Virginia Condi with the San Marcos River Foundation. So Virginia, same thing. Let me know if you're having trouble sharing your screen. I've got PDF of your presentation if you're not able to do it.
I think I've got it. Can you guys hear me okay?
Can hear you fine.
All right, cool.
And
So
can
I'm
see your
really excited
presentation.
to, sweet, okay, good. I'm Virginia Condi. I'm with the San Marcos River Foundation, and I am following in Diane's footsteps. As you all know, that's going to be challenging, but it's been fun so far with the conservation of the San Marcos River. And we are focusing primarily on, you know, in addition to our water quality monitoring and all of that, we are focusing heavily on the continued preservation of green space on the recharge zone. And the reason for that is that without a healthy Edwards Aquifer, we will not have a flowing San Marcos River. So what I'm going to show you does have a couple of changes since our original PIF. And I'm really excited to be following Dan because I hope that what I'm about to show you will someday link up to the Violet Crown Trail through the Emerald Crown Trail and potentially go down to San Antonio through the Great Springs project. So this just has so much potential. And the San Marcos River Foundation has been working for over 20 years to create this loop around the city of San Marcos. So in my first slide, I'm just thanking you for the opportunity to come and present. The way that this project has changed is that we have added 75 conserved acres to the project. We've added a critical trail link in the future trail loop around the city of San Marcos via a trail easement. And we've reduced the financial request to the county, making this updated project request even better than the original one. So I hope that you're excited to see what we're talking about here. I am including a map of the recharge zone for the Edwards Aquifer. That purple line that you see is the primary recharge zone for the aquifer. The reason we're concerned about that is that if these karst recharge features are covered up, we all know that not only will the Edwards Aquifer not get filled up, but we will have increased flooding, which you all know San Marcos has an issue with. I have included a link so you guys can see some recharge in action if you're interested in that. I'm not going to play it for you now, but it's a link. So go back and check that out. Now, this is the map of the loop around the city of San Marcos that Diane has worked for over 20 years to help create along with the city of San Marcos and the San Marcos Greenbelt Alliance. I want to draw your attention to a couple of points. Can you guys see my mouse? Okay, so I'm going to say a couple of names so that when I am presenting in a couple slides, you kind of know what I'm talking about. If I need to come back to this slide, I'm happy to. So just stop me and we'll come back to this if we need to. So where my mouse is right now is Windermere. It's Windermere Farms. There's a conservation easement on that. Next to it is the Geiger Tract. That was in our original POSAC PIF. On the other side of Sink Creek, you have Owl Bluff, which is 75 acres. And then over here, you have the Elsick Tract, which is 102 acres. Now, I want to also point your attention to the fact that this line, which is a trail easement, is along Sink Creek, which flows directly into Spring Lake. So you can see the significant importance of that proximity. And so I just want to draw your attention to the fact that all of this is along Sink Creek and that all of it is in the recharge zone. So the hope is that one day we can build this loop around the city via trails for people to use. A lot of it's existing, and we're working with, we just received a Texas Parks and Wildlife trail grant to work along Purgatory Creek, and we've been working with TxDOT in the city of San Marcos to create some east to west of I-35 connections for the neighborhoods on either side of I-35 to get to the adjacent parks. So we have a lot of good stuff going on here, but this presentation is primarily about recharge zone. So the first request in this PIF is the LSIC tract purchase. It's 102 acres. It's the property that was on the west side of the loop. And Smurf does not own this land. It's 4 very awesome humans that purchased this land in order to prevent a major development from occurring because of the amount of sensitive karst recharge features on it. So this is the predominant portion of our request. It's also adjacent to city-owned property. So the LSIC tract sits directly between the Bowie tract, which is along Wonderworld Drive. And then on the other side of Old Ranch Road 12, it connects to Ringtail Ridge. So Ringtail Ridge is already in use, has trails, and really awesome piece of property. So this LSIC tract sits between 2 city-owned properties and is the last piece of land that we need to create a totally connected loop around the city. Here's some pictures for you guys to see. You can see down in the bottom, this karst recharge feature. That's not insignificant. And the property is just covered with these karst recharge features. So we originally in our PIF asked for the money for the LSIC tract, but we also in our original PIF asked for money for the Geiger tract. Well, the big changes and honestly huge, awesome surprises for Smurf is that Windermere Farms asked to trade us the Geiger tract for a different 75 acres called Owl Bluff. Y'all let me know if I need to go back to that original map. But what that means is that when we made that trade, the Geiger tract got a conservation easement put on it immediately. So its sensitive recharge features will not be built upon. And then when we had Owl Bluff, we ended up selling it and put a conservation easement on that piece of land. So instead of 75 acres of conserved land, we now had 150. And then to top it off, well, let me tell you about the Owl Bluff conservation easement. So that the value of that easement, the appraised value is $825,000. We are only asking for between $192,700 to $332,700 because we have also applied to the Meadows Foundation. If we receive a grant from the Meadows Foundation, we don't have to ask for quite as much from Hays County. So the amount of easement value that we do not request from Hays County will go towards match, in addition to the value of the Geiger tract easement, which was $395,000. Here is a picture of Sink Creek. On the right is Windermere Farms, and on the left is Owl Bluff. This actually, where I'm standing in this photo, is Owl Bluff. So you can see this, you know, when it rains heavily, all that water goes straight into Spring Lake. So it's really critical land. It's a really good thing that this property is conserved. So the bonus is that when we made the trail, or excuse me, when we made the trade for the Geiger tract and Owl Bluff, we were gifted a trail easement along Windermere Farms, which we knew that LSIC was a possibility, but we didn't know how to connect Spring Lake Preserve, which is very heavily used, over to the city-owned early tract. And so when this gift of the Windermere Trail easement was made, it connected a piece that we didn't know how to connect. So this was not only additional acreage conserved, but also a missing trail link in our loop around the city. So this was an amazing deal that we made. We did not get this trail easement appraised because frankly, Smurf is trying to be really fiscally conservative and we don't want to spend the extra money. But this trail easement too could be used as match because it hasn't gone towards match for anything else. So if you look at the total request, LSIC on the left does take the majority of the request, and then the conservation easement on Owl Bluff is the secondary request. So the total is going to be less than $3 million. And then the matching funds, you can see, not including the Windermere Trail easement, is around, $1 million to 1.2. One thing I'd like to add is that the owners of the LSIC tract are happy to wait until 2022 for the purchase because they're very aware that the county may be trying to secure Texas Water Development Board funding, the state revolving funds, which are 40% forgivable for water lands, and LSIC does qualify for that based on the recharge features. So my last slide is questions. I know I got into a lot of detail. I just want to throw this map up for you again in case that was confusing, because it's a confusing thing to have to explain. So
Thank you, Virginia. And so exciting to see the connection finally happening all around the city. That's great. POSAC members, do you all have questions?
Virginia, this is Catherine. What's the second orange tract on your map?
okay, the one on the right of Windermere and Geiger, it's just showing more conserved land in the area. That's actually the Dreamcatcher Ranch, which was really important for Sink Creek watershed. And so it is not related to the trail loop or Smurf's request. It's just additional conserved land in the area.
Can you point out where Early is?
Yes.
The connection.
So this is the Early tract. This is the Milliken tract that the city used state revolving fund money to purchase. And it was the first in the state to get that 40% forgiveness. So I really hope the county utilizes that avenue. But Milliken and then Early, and then we've got the Windermere Trail easement, and then all of this is Spring Lake Preserve.
What's the public access proposed for LSIC?
So right now we're only asking for the fee simple purchase. We have not included in our PIF finances for trail building or parking lots yet, because frankly, the San Marcos Greenbelt Alliance will do a lot of this with volunteer hours because they're incredible. Our priority is securing the land and then finding grants later on to create the actual trail. But to answer your question, you have Old Ranch Road 12 here. And if a parking lot were to be made, because in this loop, it would be an 18-mile trail loop. And so we need some parking lots along Old Ranch Road 12. There is an existing house and a couple of other existing structures that could be an ideal situation for that. I was taking notes when Dan was talking because I really liked the solar gates and the timelines and all of that. But frankly, that's all going to be up to the city, because Smurf is not going to own the property. If you guys fund this, it's going to be the city, hopefully. So they'll need to make those decisions, but that's my vision for it. And my 3-year-old's joining our call, by the way.
So the city of San Marcos will end up owning the LSIC track.
Yes, and they voted on a resolution last night to possibly accept the land if the county purchased this property.
Does the city propose any dollars to support the project?
They have not. They're pretty strapped with COVID and everything else going on. The cool thing about this is that, for the Parks Department, this could potentially be used as match for a grant to get some of this trail built.
And Smurf would hold the conservation easement on it if transferred to the city?
Yes, we could absolutely do that. We are holding the conservation easement on Owl Bluff as well.
Virginia, Mark Kennedy here. The conservation easement transaction on Owl Bluff is complete. So what does Smurf want the county to pay for?
Part of the value, because of the debt associated with the loss in the value. Y'all, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, you guys. We could have sold the land for twice as much as we did. And because of the conservation easement, we sold it as a conservation property. And so because of the 50% loss, we weren't able to get where we needed to get to be whole again. We still have loans, and there's a lot of outstanding debt on that property because of the loss that we took. So it's for the conservation easement value.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Other questions for Virginia?
Feel free to send me babysitter names. Just kidding.
She's too cute.
She's something.
I've had mine join many a call. She loves to listen in.
Yeah.
Early conservationists.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you guys. Feel free to reach out if you need any more questions answered.
Thank you, Virginia.
Thanks. I'll stop sharing if I can find that.
James, who do we have up next?
Okay, our last presenter, last sponsor is Greg Ulmer with the City of Buda. So Greg, just like with the others, if you want to take control, let me know if you have problems.
Can you see me okay, James?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Let me see if I can transition here.
All right, I'm seeing it.
Perfect. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to visit with you this evening.
Hey, Greg. Sorry to cut you off. It's got a double screen view.
Okay, let me go back.
So I'm not sure.
How about now?
So I think it was the presenter view. Now you've got the slide deck on the left, and then the.
If it's large enough, I may keep it as is, if that's okay with everybody.
It works.
That's probably, it's good.
I was wishing they were bigger with the last one, but
Okay.
I don't want to see it double. It won't work with slideshow.
Let me try. Still nothing? Okay.
Do you have two screens, Greg, or just one?
I've got 3 screens, actually.
Okay,
my
you
office, so-
you might be able to go to slideshow and then share the screen that's just the presentation.
What about that use presenter view under the monitor that's kind of over on the right-hand side? Like right above where it says prop bond A, there's use presenter view. I don't know if that does anything.
There you go. Was it
Turn it
off or
off.
on before?
It was on before.
Okay, yeah, try it now.
I unchecked it, so let me try this.
Oh, great job, Blanca.
Thank you. Thank you for the IT support. I appreciate it. All right. Good evening again. I appreciate everybody's time this evening to visit with you regarding our projects. We have made some recent changes, and I want to share those with you this evening. We still have 5 total projects, but there have been 2 that have been replaced most recently by our city council here as of July 20th. So we will highlight those 5 this evening. And be happy to answer any questions that you may have at the end. We do have them ranked in order as feedback from our city council on their priority listing. And a lot of it's based on the longevity of these projects. Some of these have been in our Parks Master Plan since 2014. And then we actually have a brand new Parks Master Plan that's coming out here shortly that's going to be adopted and still does include quite a few of these projects. So we'll make note of those this evening. So project number 1 is Garrison Park. As a current citizen of Wimberley, if you're familiar with Blue Hole Park, this may speak to you. It's very similar in layout from a conceptual process on how Wimberley Blue Hole is laid out. It's got a lot of similarities to Wimberley's Blue Hole Park. So this is a 40-acre tract of land that was purchased by the city back in 2016 with bond proceeds from a 2014 bond election for the city of Buda. So the city had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to purchase this tract of land located centrally here in Buda. And the original landowner inherited this land back in 1915. So about 100 years later, he deeded this over to the city with a sale of the land. And part of that sale had some stipulations in the deed to have the namesake, the original landowners, the Garrisons, to keep that as designated parkland in perpetuity, as well as naming rights to make sure that we have this as Garrison Park, named after the original landowners. So there's heritage to this land. There is a lot of relevance to the cultural history of Buda, and we want to keep that going forward. So we will keep this named as Garrison Park to pay tribute to those citizens of Buda. Again, a 40-acre tract of land. We want to keep this mostly as a passive park. There are some more active elements closer to the creek, Onion Creek, which we'll go into detail here shortly. But this one has a lot of opportunities just because it is a passive park, more of a nature-based park. The original homestead, which is located kind of to the top right-hand side of the screen here, that homestead still is intact. We're looking to renovate that homestead and repurpose it potentially into a nature center. So that'll kind of be our central hub and focal point of this park. So on the top right-hand side of the screen, you can kind of see the main entrance close to that nature center and original homestead. We'll have quite a few prairie restoration sites in the main portion of the park. So we're working with a design team on that currently, trying to get one under contract to assist us with this endeavor. We also have quite a few other areas, lowland prairie that lends itself to a boardwalk and some nature bird blinds. We've got closer to the Onion Creek area itself, we have some more active areas, a canoe and kayak launching area. We've got a fishing area as well, and also a swimming hole a little bit further up the creek. So a lot of opportunities for families to get out, experience nature in both an active and a passive way. We've explored the options for possible camping. That's been some of the surveys that have come back, and we'll go through that here in a few slides. We're looking to break this up into 2 phases. The original PIF form that we submitted showcased the cost for the entire project of $12.5 million. We're looking at doing just phase 1 for $11 million, just due to some of the escalation and inflation costs, cost of materials. The latest projection that we have from our design team is closer to $11 million total for design and construction of phase 1. So phase 1 on the footnotes, if you can see it, kind of showcases what it'll all include. And so we're looking at the parking areas, trails, water access headquarters, prairie land restoration, and then the second phase would be the nature center and the restoration of the Macon homestead. So again, we're just looking for phase 1, which would have direct access to the public as soon as we open. Another nice feature about this park, since it's centrally located, it would help us complete a trail gap that we currently have. So there are 2 adjacent parks located right to the south and to the east of this park. So it's on your right-hand side of the screen. We have our brand new city park, which we just opened, another 40 acres of land, more of an active park. We have concerts with an amphitheater. We've got playgrounds, splash pads, a large pavilion, and a lot of open picnic areas for families to gather. So this would tie into that park as well through a trail on the bottom right-hand side of the map. On the top left-hand side with the arrow here, you can see that it'll tie into Stagecoach Park, another 60-acre tract of land. And so Garrison Park is very important to us to complete the trail network that we have here in Buda, and would be a critical component of completing that network. So again, just kind of going back to some of the history, 40 acres purchased here in late 2016, early 2017 for $1.2 million. We're looking for some additional funding from our citizens here in Buda, potentially on a bond referendum here in November, for design and development funding as well. And reaching out to you tonight in the Hays County voters that approved this for any additional funding to make this a reality. As you've seen before, we've gone through the conceptual plans back in 2016 with Design Workshop. They've done a great job to survey the citizens and see what they'd like to see at this future park. And we're going to the next step. We're ready to jump into this park and fast track it. So we're looking at securing a contract with 10 Ike landscape architects to get us into schematic design and design development. We're looking to do that here within the next month and get it to our city council. If that's approved, then we're ready to jump forward with this project for design and hopefully construction shortly thereafter. The master plan for this park was completed back in 2016 and approved by Buda City Council. We have our O&M projections for the site, potential costs for us to take it over for operations. So the Parks Department here with the City of Buda would continue with the O&M for this park. A critical component that we want to secure is ADA accessibility to the entire park. So for all the trails, the future nature center, a lot of the amenities that you're going to see with this park will be ADA accessible. We want to have some boardwalk areas for nature observation and protection. These are something that are unique to Buda. We really don't have any of those right now, and so this would be a first for Buda. And then, like I mentioned before, those trail connections are going to be a critical component. They're always highly rated by our citizens here to be their #1 request, and we'd be able to capitalize on that and fulfill their requests. Related to this, that you'll see in a few slides here, is another request for some parcels of land that are close to this park. We'll showcase that here shortly, but there's an opportunity for us to acquire 4 acres of land that would expand this park. That's another request that we'll cover here shortly. Looking back at some of the citizens' requests from surveys on this park, This was the order of their requests. So we built a lot of these into the conceptual plans. So quickly, trails, restroom, nature center, a swimming hole, the meadow restoration, bird watching stations, picnic areas, parking, fishing, kayaking came in as a tie, a kayak launching area, fire pit, events facility, camping, bathhouse, social games, hammock grove, and treehouse. So we feel that we're going to be able to fulfill most of these, if not all, with additional funding. This is what some of those requests look like in reality from the conceptual plan. Again, that nature center, we're looking to build off the original homestead. It's on top of a bluff, so it overlooks the meadow and the Grand Prairie area. So we would repurpose and reuse what we can from the original homestead and build upon that for a nature center. The lawn, if you see on the bottom left-hand side of the picture, if that looks familiar, that is Blue Hole Park. So closer to Onion Creek, we're looking to do something very similar. Have an area for everybody to have a picnic and get access to the water amenities, whether it be the fishing areas or swimming areas as well. We want to do the meadow restoration, a wetland boardwalk, possibly an outdoor classroom closer to that nature center, paved trails in flood-prone areas, buffered parking, a canoe and kayak launching area, trails that are more natural as well in the meadow, and then a big request of a zip line and a ropes course, something unique to the site. This is an aerial snapshot of the lay of the land. We've got a lot of eco-diversity in this area in the 40 acres. On top of the bluff is the homestead that can kind of overlook the meadow area down below. We have an escarpment forest as well, riparian forest, and then Onion Creek itself. So we have access to a lot of nature-based areas that we can educate the public on. This is a snapshot of what the original homestead looks like. That was built back in 1915. We're looking to expand on that to make it a nature center to overlook that meadow area. So this is just a rendering of what that could be in the future. Some pictures from closer to the riverfront itself. Lots of opportunities for kids to enjoy swimming, fishing, canoeing, kayaking. And then on the left-hand side, just kind of a breakdown of all the amenities and where they would be on site. Kind of a closer diagram of the existing site itself and then its connections to City Park and Stagecoach. This one really showcases a lot of the trail system that would work its way through the entire park itself. As I mentioned before, we want to pay close appreciation and attention to the original landowners. So we will rename this the John D. and Bird Mims Garrison Memorial Park. Our focus is to highlight the beauty of the naturally preserved landscape and provide opportunities for future generations to enjoy and appreciate its natural heritage. So that is Garrison Park. Project number 2 is Onion Creek Trail from RM 967 through Garrison Park. And so this is highlighted. Yes.
Should we pause to allow members to ask questions on that specific project before we move on to the next one? Is that
Absolutely.
okay?
Absolutely. I think it's a great idea.
And by the way, I was pulling up aerials of this as we talked. I had no idea there was that beautiful section of Onion Creek there going through Buda. It's all dammed up. It looks like a beautiful piece of water. Certainly important to ensure that the citizens of Buda and Hays County get to visit that and enjoy it. Did you provide a budget and proposed amount that is being matched with the request from Hays County?
We did. What we're thinking right now, as of a city council meeting last evening, is the city is going to propose for the next bond election in November $5 million in development. And so if that passes in November, we'd have $5 million total to match towards this project.
So is the total budget 11 million, or is it 16 with that additional 5?
So the original phase 1 is going to be 11 million. And then phase 2 for the homestead is actually 9 million. But we're not considering that tonight for phase 2. We're just looking at phase 1 for that total price tag of 11 million. And our 5 million would go towards that $11 million total.
So then the request from Hayes County, I have not reviewed your PIF, but was it 11 or is it 6?
It is 11.
Okay. But that's for the full project. Should we consider it 6?
It just really depends. And if we get that bond money in November, it's hard to say. We would like to stick with the 11 million just in case the bond election is not successful. We'd be starting at, we don't have any existing funding earmarked for the project for development and construction of this park. We're just going through the design elements of it right now with a local firm in Austin.
Okay, thank you.
Greg, is this something you would submit to Texas Parks and Wildlife for park funding? And is the timing compatible with what you might get from the county?
Great question. Absolutely. We're looking to do that as well, just to kind of leverage those assets towards this project. 10 Ike, which is that landscape architect firm in Austin, we're writing into the contract for them to assist us with applying for that Texas Parks and Wildlife grant.
What's the date for that?
Usually those are due in, I think, late January, February timeframe, have those submitted. And we're looking to lock up our contract with them late this month or potentially into next month.
And is the, on the left of this screen you're showing us, is that where the dam is, where Garrison Road crosses the creek is a dam?
That's correct. Yeah, it's just basically the top left-hand corner here of the diagram is where it dams up, basically where Garrison.
Yeah, great. And that area is gorgeous. I'm so excited. On the
Absolutely.
downhill, on the downstream side, is that the city's sewer treatment plant or water treatment?
It is right here, correct. Yeah, right in the middle. It just kind of bisects both parks. We've got City Park on your right-hand side, Garrison here on the left, and then Stagecoach right above this park.
And you'd be able to put a trail on the back of your utility property, right?
We actually just put it in July 4th in anticipation of our holiday festival that we host at City Park. So we actually have a natural man-made connection currently right here in between the parks.
And totally unrelated to this project, in Stagecoach Park, there's a fence above the creek. Does that mean that the city does not own down to the center line of the creek?
We would have to look at some easements potentially, yeah, to make those connections. We know the landowners there and have a good relationship with them, so we'd be working at potential like trail easements. But you'll see here shortly in another request, this little top section here is 4 acres that we're looking to acquire as well to make that trail connection to Stagecoach.
Great, thanks. Great project.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Greg, I think I just missed this. Did you say that the homestead is going to be restored into the nature center?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we may extend over the bluff here to have kind of an outdoor-based nature classroom.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of this top corner here, if you can see my cursor, is the original homestead.
Okay.
So we're looking to repurpose and reutilize as much of the material as we possibly can. Like I mentioned, it was built in 1915. So it does have some challenges, but it's got a lot of cultural heritage and relevance to the site. So we want to keep it intact as much as possible and kind of pay tribute to the original landowners.
Yeah, and recycling, upcycling is definitely something great to do.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Greg? All right, should we move on to the trail project?
Yes, sir. All right, project number 2 has to do with connectivity. This is our Onion Creek Trail from RM 967 through Garrison Park. So it does have relevance to the project we just discussed. It's going to be notated on this green line that you see in the center of the screen. And so Coal Springs basically starts right here. It gets us up to a pedestrian bridge at 967, and then kind of backs through City Park, past the treatment plant that we mentioned earlier, into the new Garrison Park, and then we're looking to connect to Stagecoach Park, which we briefly discussed. So it's again going to be notated by this central green line that you see on the screen. The cost estimates there for 3,000 linear feet plus the second portion of it. So it's about 5,200 linear feet at a price tag of $837,000. So we're looking for funding support on that. A lot of this does fall in a floodplain. So we're looking at concrete surfacing to make sure that we don't have any washouts and fall within a good trail system that's going to last for many years to come. That's all I have on that one, unless there's any questions.
Sure, any questions?
So Trail 1 and Trail 2, that's the sum of those two?
Correct. Yeah, it'd be both put together. So if you're looking at Trail 1, it's basically going to start right here, go up to 967. It'll cross over close to the old elementary campus of the school district here. And then it'll pass through City Park and then merge into Garrison Park, which is on some of those conceptual plans that you saw earlier.
You have the ownership of the underlying property?
The only thing we'd have to reach out for some assistance with would be the school district. This portion here, right on the corner, we'd have to look at getting some easements from them. But we are very optimistic that that's going to be done here shortly. We've been talking to them for some time now just to look into what's it going to take to get that accomplished. So we feel good about that. And then on the back side up here, closer to Stagecoach, as we mentioned, there may be some easements we need to get to connect into Stagecoach. But most of it, 95% of it is owned by the city.
Back in the 90s, my Girl Scout troop and I were promoting this very idea. So I'm kind of excited.
Absolutely.
All right, hearing no other questions, move on to the next one.
So this one relates to Garrison Park as well. I mentioned it briefly earlier, but there are 2 parcels of land within Garrison Park that the city has interest in acquiring for a few reasons. Number 1, to expand the natural parkland. And number 2, to mitigate what we feel is some hazardous conditions from a used car dealership. Right now, there is a used car dealership that's taking over 1 acre. If you look on the right-hand side, it's in this vicinity. If you look at the map on the left-hand side, it is the bottom portion here. So since it's in such close proximity to the creek itself, just for the benefits of the parkland itself and any kind of possible leaks of oil, fuel, anything down to the creek itself, we're looking to acquire this land and kind of restore it back to its natural state. The larger section, which is about 3.91 acres on the top of the screen here, sits vacant currently. We haven't approached the owner quite yet, but we're looking to do that if we have funding available to acquire that parcel as well. And the true reason for that is it's a direct connection to Stagecoach Park for that trail network. And so that would be our ideal scenario, is if we were able to purchase both tracts of land here, both parcels, to mitigate any environmental hazards to the creek itself, and then also make that direct connection into the trail network through the park. Questions on that?
So that tract owned by the car dealership is how many acres?
That is 0.91 acres.
And how are they using it? That's not where a dealership is selling cars, are they?
They do actually have car sales there. It's
Garrison Road.
Correct. Yeah, on Garrison Road, and close. They've been there for some time now, and so a lot of it is internet based. It's not a highly trafficked road, so you don't see a lot of people coming and going for that used car dealership there. However, it does pose some environmental hazards just with the nature of the sales there.
Those certainly look like necessary additions to that parkland. Any other questions for Greg on this expansion project? All right, hearing none. What's up next?
Project 4, this would be for land acquisition on the east side of 35. Currently, the city of Buda only has 2 smaller neighborhood parks in existence east of I-35. So the majority of our parkland and neighborhood parks falls on the west side of 35. So we're looking at equity. We're looking at building a regional park on the east side of 35. As anywhere here in Central Texas, land is going quick. So time is of the essence to purchase land now for future generations. And again, this is looking at 60 to 80 acres for a regional park. We have some ideas on some potential spots that we could put this regional park. But again, right now, as things are being developed, we have to secure this space as soon as possible. This has been in our original Parks Master Plan since 2012 as a high priority for us. We just haven't had the resources and opportunities and funding to complete this high priority for us. So the latest projections that we have for land acquisition of something of this magnitude and size is $7.8 million. We're looking again for 60 to 80 acres. We think this would kind of complete the equity on the west side versus east side of all of our park system. And so we would really appreciate any funding that could go toward east side land acquisition for equity purposes for the citizens of Hays County and Buda.
So what kind of parkland dedication obligations do your subdivisions have that are going up? Looking at an aerial here, it looks like there's some very large subdivisions east of 35 in, I guess, the Buda area. I don't know which is in the ETJ or, is actually in Buda. And I assume they have some parks within those communities. How does that work for the city of Buda?
Yeah, so for any developers that come in, parkland dedication fees do apply, or they can pay a fee in lieu. On the east side, kind of close to where that circle is, we have Sunfield, which is in our ETJ, but not in our city limits. And so they're currently developing over 500 acres, kind of on the right-hand side of that picture. And the circle that we're looking at falls to the south of that Sunfield development area. That's really the only land that remains available. Then we fall into the city of Kyle. So we're starting to get landlocked on available parcels of land, and this is kind of our only opportunity left to actually secure some acres or for something of that magnitude. And so Sunfield as ETJ, they're looking to expand as well. And future phases may kind of cut into this space, so we're looking to acquire land as soon as possible.
Are there questions for Greg on this proposal? Do you have the land under contract, or is
Not
this
yet.
just not yet? Yes?
No, sir, not yet.
Okay.
So yeah, we're just looking at the funding to acquire that land and get it under contract.
Is there no land identified for this at this point?
There is, it's just south of Sunfield. So we'd be negotiating with potentially the Sunfield property owners. We've already started those conversations, but it would fall on the south side of Sunfield.
It looks like you can see a large lake there, which is, I guess, a regional detention. And would you be asking the Sunfield development to participate in this in any way?
Correct.
I assume it would be an amenity, significant amenity to that development.
Correct. Yeah, and so you're right. It's the property that we're looking at. The detention pond there is on the west side of the property, so it would include that area. So absolutely, we'd look at participating with them on utilities and sharing those resources to make this a reality.
Any other questions for Greg on this? And Greg, you had mentioned before that the council had ranked these, and so we are going in the ranking of priority for the city of Buda, right?
That is correct. Yeah, as they're on this screen, 1 through 5, these are the priorities from their perspective.
Great.
So this is the last one I wanted to share with you this evening. This is Garlic Creek Trails. This does tie into the network for, the Emerald Crown Trail. And so this one is important to us. It also has access to one of our local elementary schools. So we've explored safe routes to school funding. Unfortunately, been unsuccessful with those. And so we're seeking out some additional funding to complete these gaps within Garlic Creek. So we're looking at a price tag of $400,000 to complete this project with concrete trails. It's close to 2 miles in total linear footage. Nice features about this: we've had some pedestrian bridges put in years past on the left-hand side here, but nothing to connect the different areas of the neighborhoods themselves. There are some local ponds in the middle that we could use for fishing access and just nature observation and enjoyment. And so anywhere you have a highlighted green area would be some highlighted areas for those amenities for everybody to enjoy. The pathway would be fully paved just because this isn't a flood-prone area, but we're looking at connecting 2 neighborhoods together to really make that network for kids to walk to school and enjoy this large tract of land for Garlic Creek Park.
Could you help orient us where this is?
So to the north, this long road that you see up here is 967. To the south is Elm Grove. To the west is 1626 off the left-hand side of the screen. So it's almost at the intersection of 967 and 1626 on the west side of Buda.
Where would the access be for people who didn't live there?
So we do have some options for some parking areas close to this. We have Garlic Creek Park, which has a parking lot and a neighborhood recreation center. So there's about 30 spots that are currently here that could serve as a trailhead, and then get them access to these other locations. On this side, there is on-street parking on the Elm Grove side that would be accessible for them as well. And there's 2 entry points from the Elm Grove side. There is additional parking closer to from the Colon Country area as well. We have some on-street parking that would get them access to these trail sections. But to answer your question, the ideal area is on the north side, next to that amenity and recreation center.
And is this all city-owned land?
Yes, yes, it currently is.
Are there natural surface trails there now?
So we do have a few sections kind of on the west side here of some concrete trails with that pedestrian bridge that goes over Garlic Creek. And that is kind of the extent on the west side, just to connect a portion of the 2 neighborhoods. There is some natural trails that we've put in here recently behind the amenity center that just kind of go through the tree area here just for kind of natural setting for kind of decomposed granite trails. That's the extent of it. There's gaps within there that are highlighted with those red lines to really kind of tie in those other areas.
All right, have you looked at rec trail funding for that?
We have actually applied for Texas Parks and Wildlife twice now. Unfortunately, have been unsuccessful in that. And the safe routes to school, we've tried that as well, but it does impact some of the busing routes. And so we have not continued to apply for the safe routes to school grant funding. So between Texas Parks and Wildlife and Hays County, this is our best options at this time.
Was the rec trail application for this same trail system or a different one?
It's for this one, yes, correct.
Other questions for Greg? All right, well, Greg, thank you. Really applaud what Buda is doing, and they're forward thinking about trails and natural areas for the citizens of your community as well as all of Hays County, and appreciate your presentations and look forward to reviewing these and discussing them further.
Great, we appreciate your time this evening as well. If there's any questions, please let us know. But we're excited about this opportunity, and we appreciate your time again. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Have a good evening.
You too. So with that, James, we didn't hear, I guess I had one question. We didn't hear about the Dahlstrom Nature Preserve sidewalk connection. Are the list that we have from the city of Buda, is it slightly different than the presentations that we received?
He said they had substituted 2 projects. I'm assuming that's when they took off.
Okay.
Are you still on?
His name
Yes,
is
I'm here. Yeah. Just to clarify that, we did substitute 2 projects. So what you see on the presentation and what was submitted last Friday will be the most current. And I know you guys had to post it for your agenda, probably last Friday. So it probably didn't make it in time for your posting, but
okay.
What you have on the presentations is what we had most recently from our council as a directive to present and submit to you.
So for our work going forward, then we will focus on the 5 projects that were presented And I assume it's not exactly what this list is, and that any of the other projects should we disregard for funding at this time?
So the only ones that we dropped off would have been number 4 and number 5 on that list.
Yep. Okay. So James, if you can just help us with, you know, our list that we have in the Excel, as well as what we have on our Dropbox, so that we're just focused on these 5, and that these other 2, the South Loop and the Dahlstrom sidewalk connection, are no longer included.
Yes, we'll update the master list with that.
Yeah, and just make sure that, you know, we can just go ahead and delete any Dropbox files that we have on those others.
Okay.
So that we don't have any confusion.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, James. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Good night.
So
Okay,
the next
well-
item, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, the next item is just an update on our projects. I don't know if James, Alexander, if you guys want to just let everyone know the tremendous amount of additional work we have.
There was a flurry of applications last week. I mean, we had some slowly trickling in. Alexander, you can correct me if my count's not right, but total new submitted since the previous submission cutoff, it looks like we got 26 new requests and a total of 14 sponsors. 14 unique sponsors is what I counted.
I actually did not count them. I was more so, I just added up the funding requests. But then I realized as well that memo that I sent to you guys, just the POSAC members, I accidentally left 2 of the project submissions off. So I will have to correct that. And then, you know, hopefully that could be something we add, you know, to the POSAC webpage, just to kind of show the public, along with the presentation material, you know, here's what's been turned into the county. But I don't know if you guys want to know just kind of the roundabout, like what the second submission funding request total is. So that is, so if it was a range that was provided as a request, I just used the highest number when adding it all up. So it's just under or approximately 95 million for just the second submission. So that's not including any of the projects that, you know, submitted a PIF and were already reviewed and all of that during the first submission session in summer 2020, unless they, you know, like the projects that have been presented on again because they were asked by POSAC to submit a new PIF.
So we have our work cut out for us.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Just as a reminder, this is Mark. Just as a reminder, the first round had just under 117 million in requests, and POSAC eventually recommended, well, it was originally 62 million and change, but we had one of the projects that came in at a 10 million recommendation that went away, so it was at about 52 on 116 requested. So keep that in mind, that not all of the projects requested wind up being recommended for funding, so don't panic.
Thanks, Mark. But we certainly do have a lot of projects to review. I wanted to bring up one of the projects specifically because I need to ensure that you all are aware of my interest in that property. The Blanco Bend Ranch project that was submitted by the Great Springs Project is a piece of property that is just downstream from a ranch that my family owns that has a conservation easement on it on the Blanco River. And we, along with our neighbors, have been able to conserve several miles of the Blanco River in that area. And we're very concerned about a piece of property that is downriver from us. It's a property around 2,700 acres that has been annexed into the city of Kyle and has been provided significant development rights over 7,000 residences. And I had mentioned this to many different conservation organizations over the last few years, concerned about that property being developed, because not only for our personal issues with our ranch, but also it's over very important recharge for both Barton Springs as well as San Marcos Springs. And the Great Springs project was able to secure a portion of that property, but was it not able to actually make the purchase. And so myself and several conservation investors have taken over that contract and intend to purchase that property and hopefully put a conservation easement on it, and eventually sell the property subject to the conservation easement so that we can ensure that it is conserved. So I have a personal interest. My family also has invested in that property. And so any discussion of the Blanco Bend Ranch project, I will leave to Blanca to take over those discussions. And you feel free to reach out to me personally on that. Happy to explain any more about it. Completely open on that, but I wanted to point out that project is now been submitted as a potential funding request from Hays County, as well as it's being sought for other funding from other partners to sell that conservation easement on that property.
And that was Blanco River Bend, Scott?
It's I believe it's called Blanco Bend Ranch.
Blanco Bend Ranch. Okay, gotcha.
I'm using the Texan pronunciation of Blanco. It's interesting. I'm in Buena Vista, Colorado, but apparently a lot of people up here call it Buena Vista. I don't quite understand that either. Any questions on that, or questions about the status of the project submissions?
We'll have a presentation on that, I'm assuming.
Yes. Scott Parker will likely, or Gary Merritt of Great Springs Project, who are partners in that project, will make a presentation eventually. And I'll try to
questions till then.
Well, you're welcome to reach out to me at any time, but I will try to stay as silent as possible on all of that, and I'll let you guys work that with Great Springs Project. So the last item on our agenda is to try to tackle a request for a commitment from Hays County sooner rather than later on the Presa Grande project, which is another Great Springs project. Unfortunately, due to travel schedules as well as some personal scheduling, we don't have Lori and Lisa with a suggested scoring for that yet and able to lead that. And I know the timing that we have is to try to get a decision by the commissioners for it by the end of this month on that property. And given that we have another meeting scheduled for next week, I believe, I'm hopeful that Lori and Lisa can come to us with a suggested scoring and lead the discussion on that project at our next scheduled meeting. Lori, I see that you've joined us. Thank you. Is that
I just want to say I just got on a little while ago. And yeah, we can do that ahead of the next meeting.
Super, thank you. Yeah.
And I'm still looking in the folders for a PIF from them. Has anyone seen one?
I saw in an email that Scott had handwritten one or something. Alex, is that correct?
Yes, so it should be in there. Let me just double check. I should have uploaded it. If not, I will do that right now, but it should be there. He was having issues with Adobe, and so I just let him know, you know, if it's easiest for him to just write it out by hand, that's fine.
Could I ask a point of clarification? For projects that have changed, but which were already scored, we had discussed a number of sort of methods for doing that. I think you talked about rescoring them all together. We had talked about doing a plus or a minus. We had talked about just adding comments. Did we draw a conclusion on that? I feel like if we did, I didn't hear it. But how are we doing that on, for instance, PRESA, if you all are reassessing it?
I don't think that we made a determination whether or not a project that had been previously submitted gets a better grade than another one. I believe what we decided is any project that has a substantial change to it will be rescored. Full stop. And Presa Grande is one of those that has a significant change to it. And so it needs to be rescored.
So when, you know, obviously these are being presented eventually to the Commissioner's Court with recommendation of some kind. Would it be appropriate?
So
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, I don't know, you know, what the committee of the whole thinks, but for this one, just to a concentration, a lot of the questions, you know, would change and the response and the points scored would change. So we could look at just rescoring it or doing a simple addition or subtraction. I mean, whatever people wanted us to do. So.
Well, I was just going to say that unless there's objection from POSAC members, and I'm happy to discuss, I think what the court would want to see is they could see the original score and assessment, they could hear what the change was, and then they could see the second score and assessment. In other words, they're viewing POSAC's opinion of this changed project over time. And it could be an improvement. I guess you'll be doing the same with the River Foundation project, and their ask came down. So, you know, I don't know how you all treat those, but I think if they view them not as a score in a vacuum, but over time, that might be helpful. Does anyone disagree with that method?
I see no reason not to show them both of them. I guess my thinking is that the rescore just goes through the scoring sheet, and you can compare it to the old one and see where the changes are and only make changes to those questions that were relevant to those.
Right.
Yeah, but
Okay. And yeah, I think it's fine for them to see both scores at the same time. A project may be so different that it might not be that relevant. I don't know how much comment we can provide on that. I think that does bring up something that has been asked from different folks, and that is, you know, what our role is. And as we move forward with projects that need funding sooner rather than later, and we've got another $95 million worth of projects to review and score and rank, you know, what can the court do when projects need to be funded or decline funded at this point in time? And I think it's important that we look back at our charter and bylaws, and we are a commission that's here to help guide the court and to rank the projects and to provide our recommendations, but it's ultimately up to the court to determine which projects get funded. And I think we've discussed this many times, that our role is an advisory role. And we've all recognized that. And, you know, we will do our best to try to provide. Hey, Lori, I think you need to mute. We'll do our best to provide the guidance that we can to the court. And if they have a specific need for immediate action, we'll jump to it. But for some of these projects that have already been scored and ranked, that I believe that unless I hear anyone else, that we've said many times that the court can move forward with that funding as they deem appropriate.
I just think it takes away. Sorry, Lori. I know it just something doesn't strike well with me on, you know, approving things early or recommending things early. You know, kind of like cutting in line, so to speak, when we haven't ranked all these other projects yet, and we make a recommendation for funding or whatever, and you know, somebody else, some other project gets you know, not able to be funded because of you know, they didn't have that pressing need, or you know, I mean, I don't know.
I agree. I think there's an issue of sort of fairness with the process and ranking and scoring things early.
I hear you guys, but at the same time, there are projects that the county could lose the opportunity to have if the court is not able to move forward. And I mean, we have to deal with both the reality and our desire to have the most clean process available, which the reality is going to sometimes bump up against that. And, you know, I want us to make sure that the court feels comfortable, commissioners feel comfortable in deciding to move forward with a project that we've already ranked and scored if there is a pressing need for them to move forward with that project. And there hasn't been a substantial change to it from when we originally ranked and scored it.
Well, if we're going by that process, I mean, why? I mean, we've asked for all these additional PIFs though, Scott, and we've got a whole lot of them. I just don't, I don't think it's a level playing field when we do that.
I think
you have to go ahead, Catherine.
Well, I thought that we had agreed at our earliest meeting of POSAC .2 that if it had already been scored and recommended, and they're dealing with Mark and James and Alex in the court to move forward, we didn't want to take anything away from somebody that had already been approved prior to the bonds. The only ones and it's possible we might score some of these new ones with a number that's higher. That's why I think James was saying maybe we give the original ones a boost of some number of points because they came in, you know, in a timely manner in the first round. But if we've already said we want to just honor what we've already recommended and not take any of those away, you know, the only ones I think we have an issue with are the ones that had changed that got recommended in the first place. And then I think the scores we jump through as fast as possible so the court can move on with helping something we really thought we wanted.
Yeah, maybe it's a phased approach, I think is what I'm hearing from you, Catherine. Like we've already scored and ranked these, and you know, for a good portion of these, why not go ahead and make a recommendation phase one? Here's the projects that we had before. We had already recommended all of these with save and accept the ones that have changed or dropped off or died. And then we go ahead and rank the other ones, and you know, whatever money that the court allows for those, then we rank them for that second phase. I mean, that seems like a fairer way. Is that a word? Fair? A fair way to do it.
I agree with that. I think it would be a real shame if a phase 2 proposal got to the court and got funded before we even got to look at it.
I think we'd have a lot of upset folks that jump through hoops to get their PIFs done, you know, in the first phase and then get the boot. Some of those actually campaigned for this bond. So that's my thoughts. Mark, I don't know if you have any input, or James, you know, if you have any recommendations there.
Well, the commissioners, court members have said that they do not want to consider funding a project that has not been considered by POSAC. But obviously, these projects that have had a change that has happened, whatever that change might be, have been considered by POSAC and have been scored and recommended or not recommended. And if the court can ignore POSAC's non-recommendation and move forward with the project anyway, then I suppose they could ignore any changes that might be negative and move forward with it as well. I think that the court, if given the opportunity, though, would want to hear your opinion. You know, if the project's changed, they'd like to know what your opinion now is. Presa Grande is a good example, though, of one where we have a property under contract that may wind up being back on the market if the conservation buyers are not able to close on it, and that's the timing issue. So, you know, that's kind of the mad rush to get you all to give your opinion one more time before they move forward, or not, if they decide not to. I think that was a pretty solid recommendation before. I know one of the changes that has happened is that, you know, some of the property along Hilliard Road is now not going to be conserved, so it's a little less territory. My impression is that it's still a project that's moving forward in some fashion. It may not be the same money amount recommended, but you know, those are the subtleties that I think they want to hear from you. But I think they're ready to rest on your original recommendation on any of the projects that have already been scored. I hope that answers your question, Scott.
This is Lori. I mean, ultimately, the Commissioners Court can do, you know, what they'd like to do. They're the ones making these decisions, and we're providing recommendations. But you know, if with the whole idea of funding something ahead of the full scoring of the proposals, or possibly I think the kind of phase 1, phase 2 approach might work as well. It seems a little bit more fair to me, but I have a little bit of heartburn over, you know, making a decision, you know, or even making a recommendation, frankly, to fund a project without having considered the full slate of projects, because obviously everything we fund is opportunity costs for other projects that we might consider later to be, you know, perhaps better, you know, than something that might have been in tier 2 first round. There might be 7 projects that we're going to look at that we would consider tier 1. And so those are just different, you know, obviously challenges that we have before us.
Did we not take a agreed consensus or vote early on that the previously scored ones would not be unrecommended based on somebody coming in later? I thought I remembered that from an earlier meeting.
That's what I recall too, Catherine.
Yeah, I think that's correct. That was the consensus. What we're faced with here is when there is a need to move forward more quickly on a project, and and also if it's a project that's substantially changed, like we have Presa Grande, then what happens? I think that the court has the information they need on all of the projects that we reviewed initially that have not substantially changed, and they could determine whether or not to move forward. And we can, if there is one like Presa Grande, provide a new score, and they can look at that score. I mean, they have the list of projects and where projects scored previously and what that score was, and see where, you know, if Presa Grande was 47 previously, does it move up to a 54, or does it even move up to, let's say, a 66 and become a tier 1 project, and then they feel comfortable moving forward with it right away? Or does it remain a tier 2 project but bump down several, you know, points in score, so that then they question whether or not it's the time to move forward with it, and instead to wait and see how it ranks versus the other projects, and risk whether or not we lose the ability for that project to get funding at all because of the current contractual obligations there. And I think that's up to the court to make that decision.
Yep, absolutely.
I just looked up the charter, and I want to read you this last paragraph. We could pull up the charter, but I can just as easily read it to you. It says the POSAC should report its recommendations on projects to be considered by the Commissioners Court on a periodic basis, adding to the existing list of recommended POSAC projects and incorporating new projects into the tiered matrix already established by POSAC. So I think that implies that you sort of have the original list, and then you're supposed to, figure out how these other ones rank in comparison, which is why I was asking about how you might change an existing project. I think that certainly telling them how you might assess it now is fair, but I think showing them where it was originally ranked is also important considering that language. So anyway, I hope that makes it clearer. We can always ask the court to reconsider the charter, but let's not do that.
No, I think that's good guidance. Thank you, Mark. The charter reads for itself.
And that's sort of what I was referring to, is that as we raise the projects, they're going to slide into that original list.
And we could have one of the new projects that's similar to Presa Grande somehow has a timeline issue, and we will score it, and then the court can look how that ranks with the projects that we've already scored and maybe ones that we've told them new scoring for, and decide whether or not they want to move forward. And the good thing about the court is they're able to look at the broader picture of all of these projects at any point in time and make a determination whether or not to move forward. And hopefully in a few months, we'll be able to finish all of it and give them a clear picture of everything together. But we are working within the reality of the world we live in, where some of these properties are under contract and there are limitations on the amount of time that we have. Well, with that, any other topics to discuss? Our next meeting is Monday, so we'll be seeing each other again soon. We can bring up any of these issues again if we feel we need to. I think we have a full slate of presenters, and we can also look at Presa Grande, and Lori and Lisa can lead us in that discussion.
Scott, the only thing I'd say, I just want to let everybody know, the Monday meetings for me are often no-go. I know you had pressed me to fill out that deal, and I thought I had. I don't know why it wasn't working when Alex was sending that out, but if it didn't, I don't know if it did or didn't. But I'm a volunteer firefighter for Hayes County, so I serve on Mondays. It's not something I can generally get out of, so I'll do my best to make them if I can, but it's kind of a tough day for me.
Understood. Thanks. It looks like we've got this one coming up. I'm looking at, it looks like we have another one.
Yeah, there were several I had to decline. I started marking them tentative just in case, but anyway.
So if there's no activity, cross our fingers. Can you take those from the station, or?
Unfortunately, the Mondays are training as well. That happen it starts at 7. I can try to take some of it, but getting prepared and to the station and all that stuff, that's what I'm doing at 6. So I'll try to take as much of them as I can, on my mobile. But
got it. Well, we'll look at that. I didn't participate in the selection of these latest round of ones. And I think it's important that we try to have as many members as possible when we actually get to scoring, where we're having presentations and folks can listen to the recording after the fact and get all the information. It's not as key, but when we start getting into the scoring, I'd like to make sure we're allowing for as many members to participate as possible, or at least not have consistent days where one member can't participate.
Yeah, and I think our bylaws are say something about how many you miss and all that stuff. I'm going to get voted off.
We won't kick you off if it's our fault.
Right. So it looks like after this coming Monday, the next Monday meeting is not until September 20th. If I'm looking at that right. And so, I mean, that's a good, gosh, that's 7 weeks or something like that.
Okay.
I would hope that before we get to that time, there might be an opportunity to change. I know that all this is, we've got all these on the calendar already.
I think
I'm hoping that.
I think there's definitely room, we can switch around some dates. I just went in there and was selecting based on the submissions, that people had already done, but I can take another look at it and see, the weeks where a Monday was selected, if there was a second runner up where everyone else was also, selected that they can attend. So I'll just take another look at it and then let you guys know.
Thank you.
And also, I know the meetings can go a little long, but our goal is to get these presentations in, hopefully by the end of September, but to get them as quick as possible. So that may minimize the meetings for Mondays. I know there's still the scoring discussions and other meetings, but we're trying to get these things scheduled pretty tight.
And Scott, for this coming one, looking at Presa Grande, if you have the time and would like to create a score on your own, feel free to provide that to Lori and Lisa, and we can include that in the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
James, when you send out the presentations in some kind of a file sharing system, it doesn't come from your name, it comes from something else. Is that right?
Well, it should come from my name if it's the Adobe, or does it say Adobe?
I didn't find them this time, and I know the previous time they came from the service you were using. It had your names. I could search under your name, but it pulled it up as the sender was the file sharing software.
Okay.
And I don't remember its name, so I can't.
Was it Mimecast?
Yes, thank you. I'll write it down.
Yeah. Well, we still need to work through that. I know the presentations are kind of large, and so when they go to the Dropbox, we've got a separate FTP that we can do. Mimecast is it's part of our email system for large files and also virus stuff. So it also could come from me as an Adobe attachment. Have y'all had any issues with opening it as an attachment? I mean, not as an attachment, but a link to a folder.
I'm not sure I've seen that feature.
Okay. All right. I'll make sure it goes out for the next meeting in some manner that's easy.
I think what happened with Mimecast was it had a time limit on it, and they disappeared in a certain number of days.
Okay.
That sound familiar? Yeah.
I know they do have
that, some instructions about if we want to keep them, we should download them because they'll go away.
Okay.
Because I was going to go back and look for Presa Grande, and I was unsuccessful. It could be operator error.
It probably has an expiration on it.
It does. I'm looking at the email right now.
Okay.
I was just wondering if when subcommittees meet, I know that there are designated members to those subcommittees, but I was hoping that an invitation could be sent out to everyone on the commission, just well, the POSAC members, because I know, we had talked about, who would be present during these scoring conversations. So I just was hoping that everybody could be invited to those subcommittee meetings.
Now, Mark, will there be a problem with quorum if it's not posted as a committee meeting? If there's 4?
Well, it'll depend on topic and whether we can call it an executive session if you don't want it to be open.
But will it still have to be posted as an executive session?
It could be posted as an executive session if the topic is supports it. And if you have a quorum present, it doesn't qualify for exec, then you would need to post it and have it as a public meeting, have it recorded and open. Does that make sense?
But is 3 is good. So you got 2 committee members and then 1 person can join.
Right.
And the preference would be y'all work out who's going to be the 3rd. Because if you got 4, that's a quorum that should be posted.
And the intent of our scoring going forward is that all POSAC members are able to participate, and nothing is scored until we have a consensus together in our regularly scheduled meetings. So certainly to the extent that we're able to avoid quorum issues and there are more than 2 members that want to participate in a subcommittee meeting, that's fine, so long as we don't have a quorum issue. Outside of that, I think it's important to send your questions to the committee members in advance if you'd like them to consider those, or bring those up in the regularly scheduled POSAC meetings.
Keep in mind that you all are not beholden to the Open Meetings Act. That is not a requirement for an advisory body. And we have on occasions in the past had an advisory commission or committee subject itself to the act, and this commission has not done that. And the reason that's important is that if you were beholden to the act, there may be even penalties associated with violations of it, and you don't have to worry about that. So if there's a slip up, either with a posting or with a quorum issue, I think, we would just have to hit the reset button and say, oh, let's not do that again. But I don't think there's going to be big trouble for it. I'm not encouraging you to violate, just don't want you to worry about it. That's all.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, unless there's anything else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. So moved. Thanks, everyone. We will see you next week.
Have a good night, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.